Why doesn't inspiration, why doesn't motivation actually last? Well, according to the science, the part of our brain that manages motivation is the same part of our brain that actually focuses on our survival. It's the part of our brain that allows us to breathe and takes care of all those other natural body pieces. It's kind of like when somebody puts their hand on your back, pushing you forward, and when they let go of their hand, we likely stop moving forward. We lose our motivation and we lose our inspiration. So in 2009, Simon Sinek did a wonderful TED Talk, how great leaders inspire action. And what he said was that we need to start with this idea of why. He said corporations, and I believe parents and teachers and coaches, we focus on what needs to be done, how it needs to be done, providing no inspiration to those that we lead, those that we coach. But he said this idea of why does something different. It connects with our brains in a different way. It encourages us to a higher purpose. It allows us to take action. But here's the question. That TED Talk was done 13 years ago. What does the data show us about that today? Well, from a corporate perspective, quiet quitting is all the rage today. That's the exact opposite of motivation. It's the exact opposite of inspiration. In fact, 24% of employees, only 24%, think that their boss gives a damn. That's not inspirational. And a study from March of this year showed that our current children are less inspired, less motivated, and less creative than the generation before. Could there be more to the story? I was getting ready to deliver my why to my team. I had listened to Sinek, I had listened to everybody else, and I spent days agonizing over how I was going to deliver this to my team to inspire them. I focused on what we were going to do. I focused on how we were going to do it. And of course, I focused on why. So that Friday morning, I got up a little early, put on a sport coat, got to the office, got ready in the conference room, and for the next 45 minutes, I started with my why. Why were we doing what we were doing? I got into my what. I got into my how. And at the end of the 45 minutes, I waited, expecting a positive response, and I got nothing. Crickets. The silence was so loud. I was disappointed. To be honest with you, I was pissed off, is what happened. But then John came out. And see, John was my coach who couldn't make it to that session. And I told John, this is what I said, and this was the response I didn't get. Now, John is a little wiser than me. John's a little older than me. And John asked me a question. He said, Steve, why did you share this information with your team? And I said, well, real easy. I wanted to inspire them. I wanted to get the best from my team. And John asked me a second question that I'll never forget. Do you know the difference between inspiration and manipulation? It was your intent. Steve, your intent was to get the best from your team. You forgot about getting the best for your team. See, when we focus on getting from, inspiration decreases. When we focus on getting for, inspiration starts to increase. But there was a second thing that I learned about this idea of motivation, this idea of inspiration. I believe most of us are problem solvers. We love to fix stuff. Carl Benz invented the automobile to help us get from point A to point B with more stuff and faster. Henry Ford came along and said, we're not making it fast enough and cheap enough for everybody. Let's solve the problem and let's create the assembly line. And then our own Edward Hines, once we got enough cars on the street and it's chaos, invented the lines that we still use today. We love to solve problems. But could our drive to solve problems negatively impact, uninspire those that we're supposed to be leading? Here's what I believe. Here's what I learned. I believe we have a problem with solving problems. In fact, did you realize that the number 2 reason kids and you're all here, don't want to tell their parents about their problem is they don't want their parents to solve the damn problem. So I was sitting with Rob. Rob is the CEO of a bank. And Rob is a wonderful leader, and he has a wonderful team. But the team was just not feeling it. They weren't inspired. They were not motivated. And as I sat there with Rob for 8 hours, one by one, his team would come into his office. They would come with the challenge. He would provide them with some direction. They would go off. For 8 hours, I watched this. What I realized what Rob was doing is Rob was driving. Rob was trying to get the best from them by solving their problem. He wasn't focused on getting the best for them by guiding them to solve their problem. You see, when we focus on driving, it decreases inspiration. When we focus on actually guiding, it grows inspiration. 10 years ago, I found myself in the dark, on a berm, looking at a mountain in the dark, in the middle of the Arizona desert. You see, John, my coach, had encouraged me to spend some time with his coach because I'm a natural driver. In fact, I would drive so hard that I would start to tear apart the relationships that I had with other people. And as I was sitting there on the berm, pissed off that I was there, the sun started to come up behind me. And as that sun's coming up behind me, I can see it coming down the mountain in front of me. And it's getting closer and closer and closer. You can see the line of the sun. And all of a sudden, it starts to form a point because there was a mountain behind me blocking part of the sun. And as that point kept getting near to me, I started to realize I'm standing or sitting at the center of that arrow. And there's sun to the left of me, and there's sun to the right of me. For 20 minutes, the sun didn't move. There was sun to the left of me, and there was sun to the right of me. And I realized I had this overwhelming feeling. That's where I was supposed to be. But I had a question. What was I doing there? What was I supposed to learn? And this became what I call my mountain moment. As I was standing there was 3 people walking up. They were in their 70s, they were in their 80s. I'm not sure exactly how old they were, but they are having the time of their life. And it was a picture of what relationships were supposed to be. So in this mountain moment, I started asking myself some questions. What was working in my relationships? What wasn't working in my relationships? Why wasn't it working? What was missing? What were the obstacles in developing relationships with others that I either was or I wasn't dealing with? You see, the mountain moment gave me something that nobody else had given me. People had told me, you need to change who you are. It didn't motivate me. You need to do this in order to connect with people. It didn't inspire me. How to win friends and influence people didn't do jack for me. But the mountain moment showed me something, took me in a different direction. It showed me what could be. And it started to guide me through and asking the questions to determine what I could do. Let me wrap this up. The power of why is incredibly important. But in order for it to be effective, we've got to keep 3 things in mind. The difference between manipulation and inspiration is intent. We want to focus on getting for people, not just from people. And we need to stop driving and start guiding. Here's the beautiful thing. Every one of you in this room can create a mountain moment for somebody in your life. TED is all about sharing ideas. And I believe every one of you is worth guiding. Thank you.